Hi, everyone. This is Margaret Manning with 60 and Me. This is the place where women over 60 come to be inspired. My guest today is Nancy Perraud. Nancy is a travel writer, she's a travel expert, and she writes articles for About.com for seniors and boomers. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, it's good to be here.
It's really good to have you here. We love your articles that you write for 60 and Me, and honestly, you are a wealth of knowledge. So I'm going to throw some questions at you today about something that we often think isn't necessary when traveling, and maybe too costly, too confusing, and that's travel insurance. Mm-hmm. You've written a great article here on the topic, and there's a lot of different kinds of insurance that you can be covered for. But what would you say, if you could choose maybe three, are the most important travel insurance policies?
Well, for people 60 and over, travel medical insurance is the number one type of coverage you should be looking at. Okay. If you're from the United States and Medicare is your only health insurance, you need travel medical insurance if you leave the United States, because Medicare will not pay for any claims incurred outside the US. Yeah. And a lot of people don't know that, and they go off and something happens, they slip and fall and break an ankle, and they get a big medical bill, and Medicare says, no, we're not going to pay that. Yes. So if you protect yourself ahead of time, when you get your travel insurance policy, one of the most important things to look for is pre-existing condition coverage, because like many other health insurance providers, travel insurance companies may choose to cover pre-existing conditions or not. There's a little trick to that, and that's that if you want pre-existing condition coverage, you normally need to buy your travel insurance policy within a week or two of the first deposit you make on your trip. So if you're doing an organized tour or you're doing a cruise, you make that deposit when you book your trip, and then you pay for the rest of it later. As soon as you make that deposit, you need to start looking at travel insurance, particularly travel medical insurance, because that time limit does apply. So that's my number one recommendation.
Okay. So on medical, because that is an important one, I know that a lot of the cruise lines, for example, offer insurance as part of the package, or they have companies that they work with. Would you say that that's a good way to go, or would you say that usually it's better to find an independent agent?
My personal preference is to find an independent travel insurance provider, partly because if the cruise line is offering the travel insurance, they have picked policies that are in their best interests, not necessarily saying that they're not in your best interest too, but you're working in your own best interest. So certainly look at what the cruise line offers. There are some great medical and travel insurance companies that you can look at online. There's some aggregators where you can type in your trip date and your trip cost and your age, and you'll be presented with a whole menu of policies that you can look at in a very understandable way. And you can look to see if you can get better coverage for lower cost if you go independently of your cruise line.
Okay. So also age is an issue. I mean, I know you've written about this in another article about when you get to be 60, 65, the costs go up
They do.
a lot.
They do. But you have to look at the costs of not having insurance as well. We all like to think that, we're going to have a wonderful vacation and we're going to be super healthy the whole time. And sometimes that doesn't happen. It's rare. Most people go on vacation and nothing goes wrong. But if something goes wrong, you really want the peace of mind of knowing that you aren't going to come home to a giant bill. Someone in my family once took a cruise and developed a very serious health condition and had to be medevaced off an island that he was visiting. And it was such a rare occurrence in that location, it actually made the newspapers. Wow. But he had good health insurance coverage, and so he had to have surgery and all kinds of things while he was on the trip, and he didn't have to worry about the cost of it all. Yeah. So that's you have really to consider those scenarios.
Yeah, the what ifs. But you mentioned this on another video when we're talking about reading terms and conditions. I think that's important too, because especially on the cruises, and I'm sure it applies to other package deals as well, because sometimes they will they will have exceptions to even your travel insurance. So
sure. And a typical exception that most people don't think about, besides age exceptions, which can exist, especially if you're 75 or older, you need to look for that, is adventure travel. If you're going on an adventure tour, oftentimes typical travel medical insurance policies won't cover you. You have to buy special adventure travel medical insurance because the risk is higher. If you're zip lining versus walking the streets of Rome, which is most likely to be a danger to you?
Yeah,
Probably
exactly.
zip lining, although I've walked the streets of Rome, so yeah, we
You,
could have an
it's
argument about
close.
that. But you need to look at specialized coverage if you're doing a special type of tour. Even and in some cases, things like skiing are considered adventure activities. So it might not seem adventurous to you, but you need to read the fine print and make sure that you're covered.
Okay. Medical insurance, pretty much a no, you've got to do it. What are some other types of travel insurance that we should think about?
Oftentimes, when you buy a travel insurance policy, it has a whole bunch of different kinds of coverages. So trip cancellation is often included in a travel medical policy. And it's a good insurance to have because if something goes wrong and for example, your airline goes bankrupt,
Yeah.
And we haven't had that happen in a while, but we went through a phase a few years ago where a whole bunch of airlines did go bankrupt. That's beyond your control, but your cruise line might not care if your air
Yes.
travel plans get canceled. And in this day and age, it's really hard to rebook on an airline and get someplace quickly because most flights are pretty full. At
Yeah,
least where I
it's
live,
true.
that is the case. So trip cancellation insurance protects that big chunk of money you've put down on a cruise or on an organized tour, and you can get all or most of that back. So that's certainly worth taking a look at, especially if you are going far from home or if the cost of your
Yes.
trip is very high and very non-refundable.
Okay, so we've got medical insurance, and then what else do we have? We got what other? Give us a couple of other ideas of insurance, because some, like you said, though, just to say, some of them are packaged. Like you get the
Yeah.
whole, you get all these
Yes.
elements. But I guess what we're saying is, what are the elements of travel insurance that we should make sure is we're
Yeah.
covered?
One kind that is a little more expensive, I would say, than others and isn't included with every policy. You have to do a search and ask for it at one of these aggregator websites or with the insurance company you're working with,
Right.
is cancel for any reason. So this is a separate kind of policy. It can be added to a package policy usually. It has a separate price tag with it, and it's
Right.
based on the cost of your trip. And what it does is it refunds to you a certain percentage, usually 70%, but it varies with the policy, if you cancel for any reason. Trip cancellation insurance has a lot of reasons for the cancellation that are covered, but there's some that aren't. Like, I'm afraid to go there isn't covered by trip cancellation insurance.
Yeah.
But if you booked a cruise to someplace and then it's a year out and then 9 months go by and 3 months before your trip, suddenly all of these bad things start happening in the place where you're supposed to go on vacation and you feel insecure, you need cancel for any reason insurance to be able to get some of your money back because your travel provider is not going to give it to you, the cruise line, the tour operator.
Yeah.
Trip
Excellent
cancellation
idea.
insurance does not cover, I have a bad feeling about this. So cancel for any reason insurance will give you that peace of mind. And I would say that's when you really need to look at and weigh the costs and benefits of, because it does cost more and it doesn't get you all your money back, but it gets you the bulk of it back. So if you are the kind of
It's worth
person who
it.
would feel nervous going into a place where maybe they just had some kind of conflict on the streets of a major city,
Yeah.
maybe that's the kind of insurance you want to look at and make an educated decision about. It's not for everyone, but for certain people, it's definitely worth considering.
I think that's really great advice. And given the instability in the world these days,
Mhm.
if you are investing a lot of money in a safari or something, a cruise even that is really expensive, you just don't know what's going to happen. So
Exactly.
it gives you more control. Well, that's actually three really good elements of travel insurance to consider. And I know in your article, there's like I don't know, about 20 different
I know, there's a lot.
subcategories, which are,
Confusing.
yeah. Is there any other that you think we should be sure to mention, or do you think those are the three main
Well, I
ones?
think those are my three top ones. And if you are a frequent traveler, you might want to look at a multi-trip policy because you might save some money. If you go on several trips a year, some insurance providers will issue you a multi-trip
That's a great
policy or
thing.
even an all year long policy.
Right.
Some of us have the opportunity to travel on that scale, and you might be able to save some money if you do it that way rather than buying just a single trip policy. Also, you don't have to have the hassle of going through the plans and reading all the policies over and over again. You just do it one time.
You're covered. Well, Nancy, I have a feeling that you've probably done this a few times, and
I
that's why
have
you're
actually.
writing for about.com. So I would encourage people to go up there if you have any questions or if they just to get more information. And we've got your article here that people can review in a bit more detail. So thanks very much. This is an super important conversation, and I'm really glad to have your insights.
Thanks a lot. It was good to be here.
You too. Thank you.